What is up, everybody? I am AJ, and I am not alone. I am with Notorious Picks, and we are going to kind of share our thoughts, our betting philosophies on not just UFC 259, but kind of just in general here. Been chopping it up with this guy here who's been nice enough to join me on this evening for about 20 minutes or so. And before we get into anything, I'd like to check in with him. Notorious, how you doing, man? And thanks for joining me.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm super excited, to get to know you and get to know your audience. Yeah, let's chop it out a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking beforehand, and we're talking about different betting philosophies. We were talking about some interesting opportunities on this card, and interestingly enough, we have similar thoughts on the main event. Where we were both Israel Adesanya backers in the past many times, but we both do agree that he's being overrated in this matchup here against Jan Blachowicz, as we both could think it kind of be like a slower pace, methodical type of battle. So we were chopping it up. We were discussing about how maybe there's a potential live betting opportunity. Andrew expressed a potential interest in that. And yeah, we just kind of been chopping up with underdogs. And there's one in particular that Andrew finds kind of intriguing in our featherweight title fights. Do you care to elaborate on that at all? Or
Yeah, let's start off with a bang then. So the line that really stood out to me is the Megan Anderson one. And the way I look at it, I looked at all the previous fights. If we click on Amanda Nunes' name and look at the opponents that she faced, not counting Valentina Shevchenko and Cyborg, because obviously those are a little different level of opponents, everybody else never closed above plus 425. And the plus 425 was Raquel Pennington. So to me, given, Megan Anderson, plus 700 is a little bit disrespectful. And I think that I'm going to take a shot on that. It's not going to be a huge shot, and it might be converted into inside the distance. But I honestly to me, it's sort of like, when people just parlay somebody, like thinking it's a no-brainer, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting about this fight. And when everybody is thinking that way, then it makes me a little hesitant. And I mean, sometimes, like last week, we had Curtis Blades. I feel like a lot of people, not last week, the week before, we had Curtis Blades, and he was a huge, favorite. And a lot of people, glossed over Derek Lewis there. And I'm kind of getting a similar vibe, but even to a higher degree here because of, Amanda Nunes and the GOAT talk. And I do believe she is the greatest female fighter of all time. Her accomplishments speak for themselves. But, this is at the end of the day a betting game. And if I get plus 700 on an opponent who is dangerous and who I believe can cause some issues, then I'll take that.
yeah, respect. And it's one of those calls we were talking beforehand. For those of you tuning in now, is just with these sorts of calls that we make, we're willing to be okay with our decisions at the end of the day. And if they come through, we're one of the few that are going to be on them. And we actually, want to make these bets with conviction. We're not just kind of throwing them out there, just, saying maybe this hits. Andrew's got a solid case to be made. He sees other paths to victory, many paths to victory for Anderson. It kind of reminds me of when I bet Dustin Poirier against Conor McGregor. I had a lot of people naysaying me about my bet. And again, that's their opinion. I don't take it personally, but that's the type of thing that you get. Whereas if you could actually mount a solid argument to back your bet, have conviction on it, and then, if it happens to come through or even, play out more competitively than the odds indicate, that is going to get definitely a lot of respect, even more so than just, making the decision to do that. So it's not something that I would do on this card, but much respect to Andrew on that. I've been there in the past as well. Another example was when I bet Drew Dober against Nazareth Hackpress. We just kind of see it with a lot of these hyped fighters, right? You mentioned like Amanda Nunes. People are saying it's a no-brainer. We could kind of say the same thing with Israel Adesanya. Hype drives these lines, and it almost inflates them to where the odds maybe shouldn't truly be. So it's a really interesting angle to attack. If you want to fade the hype train in the right matchup, that is, you could definitely get a long-term angle. Another example, one that I didn't bet, but one that was, one that I was considering beforehand, was Marlon Vera against Sean O'Malley. There was no evidence on tape that told me, Sean O'Malley should be over 2-1 against Vera, considering how durable Vera is, how tested he is, et cetera. So yeah, much respect to Andrew on sticking to that read, and he's got a great record, guys. He's been crushing it. He's got a long-term record. We're both tracked, third-party tracked and verified, so we're all good to go there. But we were talking beforehand. You're more so willing to take these shots on these big underdogs than I am. I think that's very, very interesting. You know, do you mind sharing with the people like some of these big underdogs that have come through for you? And
Actually, it's funny because my numbers on the big underdogs used to be a lot better right now, a lot better before than now until I lost to Gilbert Burns, 10 units. That's the problem. That's my problem is the sizing, you know. But before that happened, we had an ROI of over 30%. Actually, right now we're sitting at 9% on big underdogs, which is okay. But I've had bets like Munir Lazes against Al Hassan. I bet him. I think it was plus 250-ish. I don't remember exact line anymore. So that's one example that I've had. I've had some near misses where, you know, like I had Angela Hill versus Claudia Gadea, for example, at plus 200. Near miss, but we'll take it. Did my numbers really go down that bad?
Oh no, that's me.
I was like, whoa.
I'm showing my misses on the underdog.
I was like the big underdogs. I was like, I got scared for a second. I didn't want to tell people lies here, you know. But with me, it's, you know, a lot of things change. You know, I used to bet a lot of parlays when I first started, a lot of huge underdogs. I mean, huge favorites, and I actually had a pretty decent ROI. But the best ROI I got on the huge favorites was, I think, about 12%. And I had a hit rate of about 80. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm hitting 80%. And I'm like, I'm still only at, you know, 11, 12% ROI because I would lose one and it just completely screws up like 5 or 6 bets. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, let me look into this differently. Maybe I can find my strengths elsewhere. And then I just start taking shots, you know, and usually the way I look at it is I look at the betting odds when they release. And then immediately I have usually a gut feeling about certain lines that are off. And those lines are usually in the +2 whatever range. The recent one that I remember was Clay Guida. When he opened against Michael Johnson, I think it was an insane line, man. I just remember retweeting it and saying, who opened this line? Like, what kind of chimp, you know, is working for the bookies here? But, you know, people bet it, and I'm sure they probably cashed on that, you know, at the end of the day, bookies, you know. So, but yeah, I don't know, like on this card, for example, like we're looking at a few guys that are interested, like Drew Dober, for example. But personally, I'll like, if, you know, gun to the head, I'm picking Islam Makhachev. And I do see more paths in that regard. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Drew Dober wins here. But, like, that kind of underdog, I'm actually not going to take a shot on, personally. Like, I see less there than I see in Megan Anderson. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here, man. But I like Drew Dober. But I do find Islam very, very high level of a guy. You know, I really think he's like a top 5 guy. You know, he just hasn't really gotten much chance to prove it. You know, I'm not sure why he's fighting so rare, but you know, that may be due to management. But yeah, I think the guy's super high level, but I'm not gonna play -335 either. That's an easy pass for me. And I would honestly, the way I would look at it, if you don't know, don't force it. Like, if you do the tape and it just doesn't, like, you don't know, just be okay with that. You know, just don't force it. Like, there's no, I don't know. You can win, obviously, but then if you don't feel it, then I would not do it. You know, I would wait for it. There's so many opportunities to enter, whether it's during walkouts. I play a lot of things during walkouts. I think a lot of, like, my record doesn't show because you can't upload that during walkouts, nor can you upload stuff live. But at the end of the day, what matters to me is my bankroll. And if I know what my strengths are, I'm going to play to those. And, you know, and that's why I'm trying to be more picky with my pre-fight bets. That's one change I'm making this year. And yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah,
a long rant. Sorry about that, but
no. I'd love to hear it, man. In going along with that point, we're getting on air. Before we got on air, you know, we were talking about how the two of us realized that we ran extremely hot. You know, our first year of tracking. You know, we got around approximately 100 units. You a little bit more than me, but we realized after the fact that our process then, even though we were winning really a lot, which we're fortunate for, was not good. It took us, you know, to realize down the road that our process long term was not sustainable, and we made adjustments where need be.
Mm-hmm.
Also brought up the live betting angle, which I think is great. I think there's a lot of money to be won in live betting.
Oh, absolutely. Incredible amount. Some of the best bets that I've made ever were live bets. Just knowing, but that's where I think it's important to have fundamentals, which is tape. Tape is the fundamental piece. And so, for example, things like Damon Jackson versus Bektic. I bet that live after round 1 on Damon Jackson by finish, because we've seen with Bektic the same thing over and over in the past, right? But if you don't do any tape and you just come in and you don't know, you're looking, the guy's dominating, you might even bet him live. You know what I mean? But if you know those tendencies, who's going to slow down, who has that really good first round, then you can take advantage of it, But obviously, sometimes you just see something live and then, you just go with that. So, it kind of varies. But like I said, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is just not having that fear of missing out. You're looking at the betting line, for example, you want to bet. I know that you're on Aljamain Sterling, right? Let's say I think you already bet him, right?
Right.
But let's say you haven't bet him, right? And you're still kind of undecided. And now you see that the price is dropping. And then instead of actually finishing your analysis, you just go in and just bet it, but you haven't finished your analysis. That's your fear of missing out, right? If you already finished it and then you're just waiting for the line, that's fine. But if you see the line is moving and you're like, oh, no, man, I have to get in, or it's going to be minus 125 soon or whatever, then that's the bad process right there. And it's the same thing in whether you're buying stocks or cryptocurrency, that's the same thing. Fear of missing out is going to be one of your biggest, enemies, honestly. And once you learn how to control it better, I mean, a lot of good things will start happening from there, I think, in general,
I agree with you. And I think that's a lot of that. And that's something I struggle with in the past too. I'd say the best way to avoid fear of missing out is to just do your homework ahead of time. I am researching the cards all the way up until April. I have bets placed until April. And I do agree with you. When I'm done with my analysis, that's when I make the decision. I don't even think twice about it. I don't worry about, what if this misses? What if the line changes? If I'm done with my analysis and I think there's value on that line and I cap that fighter as a favorite, I'm betting them. I'm not asking for approval. I'm not begging for forgiveness. At the time when I'm placing the bet, I'm going in full force and I'm seeing exactly how the fight plays out. And that's a thing that a lot of people, I think, in the industry don't always do. People want to, wait until fight week to do the research. And I get it. Some people don't always have the time and whatnot, but that's still always going to be a long-term angle that's going to be available for us. Do your homework, beat those lines long-term. You're not going to beat every line, but that is a way to not get swayed, be your own objective thinker, make those decisions, not get swayed from anything outside. So, dude, I agree with you 100%, man. And, it's always going to be there, like we say.
I have to deal with fear of missing out every single day. It's not like when we say that, okay, we know what it is, it doesn't mean that we don't struggle with it, because it is a daily struggle. I mean, today or whatever day, you could be on top of the world. You're doing everything correctly. But then the next day you wake up and you feel completely different. Why? I don't know, but that's just how life is. So it's a daily thing. You have to you have to train your mind. And it's like, what would you say, I guess I have a question. What would you say is your biggest struggle in betting? Like, is there one area that you think you have to work the most on?
I would say avoid distractions. And I would also say with the caveat of that's kind of my biggest flaw in general is avoiding distraction. I've gotten better at it. Mm-hmm. But I'll be filming tape, and then my phone goes off, a calendar notification, and then I'll feel like I need to attend to it. But I feel like it's just more important to finish up what we're doing, and then on to the next thing. Don't move on to the next thing until I feel like I'm done. Like what I'm working on right now is done. I gotten a lot better about that, and that's something that I had issues with betting. I would be in the middle of film study. But then, I felt like I had to put together a content piece in the middle of it when really I should really just finish up what I got before I move on to the next thing. Otherwise, I'm going to be scatterbrained. And that goes along with again, that could kind of tie into fear of missing out. We're not exactly focused on what could put ourselves long-term to succeed. We're kind of all over the place sometimes, right? So that is the biggest thing for me, man, is getting distraction. That is something that I will keep working at until I master it. I promise, So Go ahead. Please.
Yeah, that's a good point because I struggle with that too. I think I have I've never gone to a doctor to get a diagnosis, but I think I have ADD pretty bad. So I do that instant gratification that you get from social media. That really screws me up a little bit, you know. So yeah, I could be literally watching, you know, tape, and then I get a notification, and then boom, my mind shifts there, and then you lose, you know, your productivity. So yeah, I've actually been actively working on that as well. But personally, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, my weakness is the sizing of my bets. The problem is that at times I put way too much into the fighters that I get like emotionally attached to some fights. You know, I have that issue, and then somehow I end up putting more units on it, even though the edge is not really there. You know what I mean? So one example I can say is Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. I've been a big fan of Corey Sandhagen for, I don't know, ever since I've seen him fight, you know, and you know, the line was pretty much pick him, right? You know, the whole week, you know, it was moving here or there. So the bookies, they had it a lot right than I did, you know, because in my mind, I'm like, well, Corey Sandhagen should not be the plus 100, whatever. So, but the issue there wasn't the bet itself, but the sizing, right? I go in with 5 units on something that, I mean, even if he doesn't lose, those two guys are very skilled and very, you know what I mean? Like the edge is just not there to bet that much size, you know? And the same thing, like, you know, Gilbert Burns, I go in with 10 units and, you know, get burned on that. And whatever you want to say, still the sizing was the problem. The bet itself, you know, we can argue about that all day long, but the sizing is the problem. So that's one thing that I've been, you know, actively addressing. And, it's a struggle, you know, especially when you lose like 1 or 2 in a row and then you want to chase. Like, there's always that part of you, I mean, at least for me, that wants to get those losses back. But, you know, you have to battle that. And, you know, that's kind of like a work in progress, you know. It's hard to master.
It is. No, you're right. And with me, with unit sizing, dude, I've been there too. I would bet, you know, there was times where I bet 5 units on underdogs and it cashed, and there was plenty of times where it didn't. To me, I don't think it's like a one size fits all. I still think it's still a bit of a learning curve for me, because I bet only 2 units on Poirier at plus 250 when I capped him as a favorite. So a different bettor might be like, well, if you thought there was that much value on the line, why didn't you bet more units? And my argument to that was, well, I had already a lot of amount of exposure on that card as it was. And if it happens to hit, I'm essentially lowering my risk that it otherwise would be for a bigger ROI. And not every bettor echoes that same sentiment, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from. And I don't know if that's the right or wrong way to do it. Like I say, I'm still kind of learning. But for me, when I'm betting, say, like a big underdog, I'm more so willing to, you know, my first thought process is lower units, because if it happens to hit, it makes up for a big ROI if it hits. Whereas, you know, if I'm betting a big chalk favorite, if I'm betting Kyler Phillips against Cameron Else, wherever he fought last time, where he's 4-1, I'm betting 4 units on that to get my 1 back and my 20% ROI. So it depends on the line and how much I have exposure to the card, man, to be honest. But I'm not here to say that that's the right or wrong way to do it. But that's just something that I've kind of been toying with, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it down at all either. I think, yeah, I'm very open-minded, so I don't think that one thing's gonna fit everybody, kind of deal. But yeah, I do want to get it better to a system. Maybe it's just to flat bet, you know, for a while. Maybe just do everything 1-2 units and then just see how that plays out. Maybe that's what I'm gonna do, because I've heard people do similar tactics. Because, you know, I think maybe that will help. You know, we'll see. Right now, it's kind of like I have a big exposure actually on the Petr Yan already. So I know that you're on the opposite side. We can maybe get into that. I don't know. But yeah, I've already bet that, and I actually the line has gotten better too. So I missed time that, but you know, it's kind of tough on that one. But I think, you know, that fight, if we kind of talk about that, like, I think it's one of the most intriguing fights in a while. But part of me kind of thinks that whoever's going to win is going to make it look easier than what we think, you know? Kind of similar to what happened in Sandhagen and Aljo fight, you know? I'm not saying it's going to happen within a minute. What I'm saying is, looking back, people will say this guy should have been way bigger favorites, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's what's going to happen. I think my thing with Petr Yan versus Aljo, I think with Petr Yan, I think his mentality is on a different level. I think the guy is, I think he's ready to walk through fire, man. Like whatever you bring at him. And that doesn't necessarily help you if you get choked out. You know, if you get your back taken and choked out, then, you know, you can't, you know, if you're not defending properly, you're going to go to sleep. But what I'm saying is, I think if they need to dig deeper, I think Petr can do it better. And that's a projection in a way. But also, when was the last time we saw Aljo overcome adversity and come back and win? Because I think Petr is a perfect fighter that actually does that. You know, in the Jose Aldo fight, man, that was a very sweaty fight. In that second and third round, man, Jose Aldo looked really, really good to me. I think it was the best Jose Aldo I've seen since maybe Mendes too. Personally, I don't know. Maybe I'm off. Maybe the one against Moicano, that one was pretty good too. But that was a quick finish. So, but anyway, yeah, I think that Petr Yan. I think the longer it goes, the more he's going to figure out Aljo. And I think he's going to really be able to hurt Aljo. I think Aljo's success, I think, kind of depends. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I think Aljo's success, he has to do it early. I think he has to do it early. And I think he has to put Petr in situations where he's very uncomfortable and keep him there for a long period of time. I'm not sure if he can hurt Petr on the feet. Maybe. I think Aljo is a little bit underrated, actually, as a striker. But at the same time, I don't think he commits to things like Petr does. So I don't know. So that's kind of like my beginning thoughts. So I'm going to kick back to you and see what you think about that.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about like how, like, yeah, the odds are competitive, but one guy could potentially look like a big favorite here. And I do agree with that. Like if Yan is able to close distance, get in the pocket with frequency, I think he could look like a substantial favorite. I'm not going to debate that Yan, he certainly hits harder. You know, he could definitely do some damage. He's like the Terminator. He'll headhunt you, that sort of thing. My hesitancy with that is I think on the outside of that is going to be Aljo's range. He's longer. He's got 4 inches of reach, not too significant, but a reach advantage nonetheless. I like his diversity with his attacks, his willingness to go to the body, to the legs. His straight punches as well. And I agree with you. His striking has come a long way. They both are very, very resilient. And I think that is a very important point that you bring up when we're talking about betting fighters. We want to see them overcome adversity. And I think they both check that box. You know, I know that Sterling won clear against Munoz, 30-27, but I mean, Munoz gave him hell. I mean, for all 3 rounds, he really did. He attacked his body, he attacked his legs. We just saw Munoz against Rivera. The guy is a handful to deal with. And I like your point. Yeah, Yan, he definitely had his hands full with Aldo there early on. Even in the Jimmy Rivera fight, he was losing rounds 1 and 2, and then he gets the knockdowns at the end, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm more on Aljo because I'm comfortable with the fact that he should be able to keep his range for long enough and kind of make Piotr miss a lot. But like, I'm not going to debate you. Like, yeah, if Piotr closes the distance, he has more power. We've seen Aljamain knocked out once, albeit it was by a knee. But yeah, I certainly would not be shocked to see Yan close that distance. They're both tremendous scramblers. So I think it's going to be won or lost on the feet. So I totally respect and hear your opinion, but that's kind of where I'm at in the matchup.
So would you say that Pedro Munoz, because I actually do remember now that fight, I think he did hurt Aljo to the body with a front kick, or he hurt his leg, something like just a little hurt. Like it wasn't like he was wobbling, you know what I mean? But there was a few strikes where it landed where Aljo like, okay, you know what I mean? And I think Pedro Munoz is kind of the closest stylistic matchup, right? At least to me, to Yan from any of the guys that Aljo has fought recently, and I think that, to me, I think Petr Yan is definitely more creative than Pedro Munoz. Pedro Munoz is pretty predictable to me. I know in the last fight, yeah, he did a really good job with Jimmy Rivera's calf, and, he hurt him. But in Frankie Edgar fight, man, it was so obvious that the guy came in with one game plan. he came in to just knock him out. You know, he was head hunting. You know, he was trying to knock him out, whereas Edgar was moving and landing punches. I was on Pedro Munoz there. I thought he won the fight, but I can never call that a robbery. That was so close. And betting, you know, a favorite who was like, you know, it was like minus 250. That was a horrible bet. So I'll never cry robberies there. You know, I'm not the kind of guy that cry robberies anyway. You know, even, you know, I had some misfortunes, you know, like, you know, Justin Tafa, I bet him by decision live, and I thought he won that fight, but whatever, you know, you get some, you lose some, you know, that kind of deal. Because we all had split decisions go our way, and we all had split decisions go the other way. But, you know, a lot of people like to just only talk about the ones that didn't go their way. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a close fight. You know, I really do. I think the first round, you know, I do see some consensus that, well, some people say that if you want to bet Jan, just bet him live. I don't necessarily agree with that. He could land something in the first round as well. He could win that first round. You know, I do think that Aljo winning the first round, in my mind, is pretty likely. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But I think as long as Petr Yan stays conscious, I think he's going to come after him for all 25 minutes. And, you know, it's going to make it hell. I think I'm very excited for it, you know, honestly. But besides this fight, one fight that I want to touch on, I wanted to hear your thoughts on, is Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. Unfortunately, I missed the opener because I would have definitely taken a shot on plus 200 on Thiago Santos. Right now, the line is not super attractive to me, although I don't think that honestly, I kind of think Rakic is a little bit overrated. I like his game. I like some things that he does, but I also think he is quite slow. Honestly, I don't think he's that fast. I think his defense is okay. He's shown, you know, better defense against punches against Volkan than he did against Devin Clark. That was very, you know, alarming to me, the way he got hurt there. And I think Thiago Santos, I mean, coming off what was it, 2 losses in a row, right? And I think it's gonna be a close fight, man. I really do, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to hurt Rakic and put him away. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much right there with you. I think like where the odds maker opened, Rakic like minus 265. I think that was pretty high. That shows what we were talking about before with like the hype factor. And Rakic is a hyped fighter. And again, I think he's a great fighter and everything. But like, yeah, that line, that win percentage was too wide. And I kind of see it as like something similar. It's like, yeah, Rakic is talented. He's huge for the weight class. He's athletic. I see improvements in his game. But on the feet, it could get dicey for him. You know, we still know that despite coming off 2 losses for Santos, he's still very dangerous, athletic, physical. And we did see Rakic hurt by Clark. That is a fact, you know, twice in that fight. And my whole thing with this whole, like, I think Rakic can take him down. Like, I think that's a possibility. I just don't see him taking him down and like imposing himself with top control like Glover did. You know what I mean? I think Santos is strong and athletic enough to probably pop right back up without too much bottom control time. So I see this as kind of a higher variance fight, to be honest with you, man. And that's why I agree with your take on like the line isn't too sexy right now, because I would probably line it around where it is right now. Rakic 60%, Santos 40%. It's close on the feet. I think Rakic is more technical, but Santos is very, very dangerous. He adds that variance. But then why I give Rakic kind of the edge is because I do think if there is some top control, some wrestling to be had, it would be coming from him. So I pretty much see it the same way as you. It's a complete pass for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that Rakic is capable of winning it in more ways with grappling. And I mean, that's what, you know, he did that with Smith, right? He could have, I mean, I think he could have just TKO'd him with leg kicks, right? Wasn't it the leg that was hurt? And he just took it out. I mean, whatever. I don't hate on guys for fighting smart, you know, whatever. I mean, it's a fight. You want to get your 2 paychecks. You don't want to just get one, right? So, I mean, I get it. And I think Rakic is pretty smart, you know, so that's one thing about him. But yeah, I think Thiago Santos is such a dangerous guy that, like, you know, unless I get like really good value against him, like with Glover, which I did actually bet on Glover there. Um,
Right.
just because I was like, well, the guy's coming off ACL injury, right? And like bad ones, right? And also Glover looked in a tremendous shape. That's another thing. I like to bet after weigh-ins a lot of times. And the reason being, like, sometimes I do get some good nuggets of information. It's not always. It's not always that, you know, you look at the fighters and like, well, me personally, like, it's not every matchup I'm like, okay, well, I know who's gonna win because of wins. No, no, but you might get one or two. And some examples of that: Jessica I versus Cynthia Calvillo. I max bet Cynthia Calvillo right after the weigh-ins. I I mean, I was leaning that way already, but that was my last confirmation. And sometimes you need that last piece of information to make you pull the trigger. And I would rather do that than versus forcing something. You know what I mean? So that's the big difference too. So, and in the past, like, I really cared, like, personally, I cared too much about my record that's tracked. So sometimes I would force bets on there uh, without having that full analysis, just so I'm like, okay, well, I got this line, the FOMO is kicking in, you know, kind of deal. And I'm like, well, I don't care about doing that anymore. Like, I'm never gonna be a tout. You know, that's just not what I'm gonna do personally. I don't hate on it at all. If people want to charge for their content, all power to them. If they're providing value and they're real people, you know, they're not, you know, whatever. But yeah, so no hate on that. But me personally, I'm like, if I'm not doing that, then, you know, I should just only bet when I really feel something. And that's what I'm doing from now on. See what happens with that.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about. Like, you know, I don't ever feel like, you know, I'm like, if I research a card and I pretty much have all my bets settled, and then I just move on to the next thing. To be honest with you, man, because if I just sit there and think about it over and over again, I could talk myself in or out of anything, you know. So when I'm done with research, I place the bets, and then I'm literally looking at the next card, because I know if I sit there and dabble with it, I could end up, you know, potentially making a bad decision, one that I wouldn't otherwise make. And it's
Yeah, you seem to have a very good process there. You know what I mean? I've struggled with that in the past, where I'm like, oh, maybe I can watch a little bit more info here. Maybe I can find something. But like, I don't know, this gut feeling that I get a lot when I'm watching something or just processing information. And a lot of times, you know, that gut feeling that I get, and if my gut feeling's telling me, hey, man, like, we don't know, just pass. And I've learned that the hard way, you know. If I'm trying to just force it, it just doesn't work, you know. So, I mean, there's a lot of growth, right? Like, I think betting, why it attracts me so much is there's so much to learn there. Like, to me, I never feel like, even if I sweep a card, like, if I get everything right, I don't feel like I am the shit, you know. I always know that this can go completely opposite the next time. It can. And like, sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes the judges, sometimes, I don't know, there's a lot of information we don't know too. Like, we don't know who's coming in injured, right? We don't know that. We don't know if someone is having mental issues at home. Like, a lot of factors that we don't know. So we can't really predict the future, but we can play our odds, right? This is the game. So, I mean, that's what excites me about this whole thing. You know, I don't ever feel like I'm done here or I've mastered it. So yeah, I love it.
Me too, man. And we were talking beforehand. You know, we're more open minded than say we were in the past. In that, you know, we don't look at anything in this game as a lock or a guarantee. You know, we're humble to the fact, we're wise to the fact that, hey, when we place our bets, they could win or lose. There's multiple different ways that this fight could play out. And I see people time and time again and again. This is, you know, people's decisions that they can make at the end of the day, act as if something is a guarantee or a sure thing in a fight, when in reality, you know, we're betting here, you know, right? Like that's what it is. And people could sometimes, you know, forget that. And so when people might roll their eyes at, like, why are these guys setting percentages? Why are they, you know, betting something because they see value on the line? Well, it's because it is a game of percentages. There is no sure outcomes. You know, people were shocked that Conor lost. You know, people didn't have in their mind that Conor could lose to Dustin. You know, because he beat Dustin the first time or whatever it may be. You know, kind of ignoring the fact that this guy, even though he's Conor McGregor and he's awesome and we all love him, he had only fought one time. It was 40 seconds in the past few years.
I mean, I think the best example of what you're saying about no locks is Anthony Hernandez submitting Rodolfo Herrera. Like that, this is the biggest example I could ever think of. I don't think I could, and it was just a few weeks ago, So that's the amazing example, because honestly, MMA, like I do think that the market itself is definitely not even close to as efficient as NBA or NFL or soccer or any of those markets. And there's multiple reasons for it, but still, man, there's that possibility of it's a game of inches. It's a game of inches. It really is. And like, I mean, I've been in the gym, like I've rolled with some people that like I've rolled with John Castaneda, right? Like at Minnesota Martial Arts Academy. And like, there's days like I'm not saying I beat him or anything like that. Not at all. And I wouldn't say that if I did even. But I'm saying like there's days when guys like, like UFC caliber fighters can get beat up by someone who is not even close to that level, right? And that's the variability about, because you don't know how someone is feeling that day, what type of mentality they have, what type of physicality, that kind of stuff. So to pretend that something is a lock is crazy to me. And it's the same thing with, I mean, whether it's stocks or whatever. I mean, there's no certainty, but yeah, if you play your odds right and you'll calculate your risk correctly, that's how you come out ahead. And that's one thing that I have to, like I said, with the sizing, I have to understand my sizing better with bets. But that's one thing that I know that I need to fix and I'm working on. I think it's important to be honest with yourself. I think if you want to get somewhere, I think you have to analyze your performance every single time and just see what you can improve on. I mean, I think it's easy to say, hey, I'm good at this, but what about the things you're not good at? What can you do about those? Don't accept that. Fight it, you know what I mean? Like find a way to get better at those. So
yeah, embrace the uncertainty, man. And somebody who trades, I'm sure you're all about that. It's one of those things, like a lot of people are afraid of being wrong when it comes to placing bets down. They want to listen to many different opinions. And again, I like to listen to these people's opinions too. I like to make sure that I listen to them, but I don't listen to them until after I do my own homework. So I'm not kind of swayed by their opinions. All my decisions are made, and I'm selective as to when I want to hear it. But people want to echo the masses. Right. So it creates this sort of image in their mind that say, hey, this thing is so likely to happen. It's 100% likely to happen. Even we were talking about right off the bat, Amanda Nunes could lose this fight, but a lot of people are going to look at the matchup and go, Megan Anderson, she's got no chance, which is just not true. It's a game of percentages. And I love your point about the fighters sometimes just not performing up to their best. I capitalized on Gavin Tucker, not only against Justin James, but also against Billy Quarantillo. I thought he was a much better fighter in those matchups. But what did people do that they held against him? They held the Rick Glenn fight against him. They held holding it against him. He had a bad performance. That's what it was. He gassed badly. He hasn't gassed badly since. Same thing with Tyler Santos against Mara Romero-Brella. She did not have a good performance. She just didn't look as good. On her against Jillian Robertson. So I love the fact that you brought that up because these are, human beings at the end of the day. There are days where we're super passionate about what we want to do. We're always passionate, but sometimes we just don't always perform up to the best of our abilities, whatever the reason may be. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one way. When I approach tape, what I like to do is I look at, when I actually do the tape, I do three fights at least. I'm looking at the most recent fight. I'm looking at the most stylistically close fight. And I'm looking at least one of their losses. Because what I need to see in the loss, how did they lose exactly? Did they just give up? Or was it back and forth? Like, how exactly did they lose? So where those areas of weakness are. And then I like to look at, the most recent, obviously, because, you need to see the progression. But a lot of times we put so much stock into the recent fight that we just kind of don't look at other data, like, I don't know, like, for example, with Conor, probably that's a good example. We look at the Cowboy fight and we're like, oh, well, he starts him in the first round and, well, he did that to Dustin. And it's kind of like 1 + 1. All right, well, Conor's winning. But that's dangerous. That's a dangerous analysis. You look at that and you're like, okay, well, first of all, there's so many factors. It's a different weight class. Dustin is way more durable at 155. No matter what you want to say, yes, he does get wobbled sometimes. Justin Gaethje did hurt him, I think. I think it was in the third round. But still, like, you can't just ignore that and say, well, hey, This happened 5 years ago. It's going to happen. Even the fighters themselves, they say a fight is a fight. Anything can happen, and we just ignore that. We're like, oh, no, this guy has this guy's number. Even the guy himself says he doesn't, but we were like, nah, he's got it. You know what I mean? So it's just understanding that, it's the balance, right? It's the balance between the recency bias versus their weaknesses in the past, right? Because you don't know what side is going to show up, Because, when fighters do age and when they finally kind of, start declining, then those weaknesses from the past actually do show up again, If the fighter was prone to getting hurt, he might start knocked out, and later on in his career, that kind of deal. But, it's tough, but that's what makes it so interesting.
It really is. And it's always going to be there for bettors, right? People are still going to hold one performance or one moment of a performance against a fighter until whenever. Maybe they just never let it go, right? But MMA Block of the Night, who we both know from his 100th University episode, put out a tweet earlier. He goes, if you're betting against Alon Cruz and betting against somebody else on this card just based on their last performance, you're doing it wrong. And like we say, you got to look at the big picture, not just look at, it's very convenient to just look at Alon Cruz losing in the first round of Spike Carlisle and looking at Eros Medic on the Contender Series and him winning in the first round and going, like you said, 1 + 1 = 2. Therefore, Eros Medic is going to go out there and beat Alon Cruz in the first round. Like you said, that's just not the way to do it. Even if that's the outcome that happens, that's not the logic that should be used to back them up, like we say, right? So I love that you said that, man.
It comes down to also like me, like I go to the gym, right? Like right now it's COVID, whatever. But before COVID happened, like you have training partners, right, that you work with. Some days I look like a killer. Some days the guy dominates me. So it really depends. Like, and people don't realize how much that really depends on the day, like that moment that you came in, And we don't know so many things coming in that, like, assuming something is a lock is crazy to me, And I don't know. It's a beautiful game because, like, it's a never-ending learning process. And like I said, I'll keep making mistakes and I'll keep learning from them. But at the end of the day, if I zoom out and I look at my career, right, as a bettor, am I better than I was a year ago? If I am, good. If I'm not, like, what do I have to work on? And that's what I'm looking at. I don't care about. I don't look at the leaderboard on Bet MMA. I don't look at other people at all. Like, all I care about is beating myself. I really do. Because at the end of the day, if I beat my previous self, then I am getting closer to my goals, and that's what matters, And I don't know. That's kind of how I approach the game, and I know that this is what attracted me in your mindset when I first saw your tweets, and I think it's only been like a week or two. But I'm like, yeah, this guy, he really does focus on himself, and that's a big thing because a lot of times we don't want to take personal accountability, and we just want to look at someone else and criticize them. But like, why use that? Why use that energy on that? Use that energy and actually better yourself. So that's what I've been trying to do. So
it's you versus you every day, me versus me every day, however you want to look at it. They say losers make excuses, champions make adjustments. It's very convenient for us to just sit back and go, oh, this is the reason why this happened, or this is the reason why this happened, excuse after excuse. But really, we want to embrace, these lessons that are learned, and embrace what we did. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? It's a never ending trial and error process for us. And that's why I love that you said, we haven't mastered it yet. If we master this yet, we'd be bored by this thing and it just wouldn't be intriguing to us. So the fact that we still have a lot to learn is beautiful for us. It tells us that for the foreseeable future, this is still going to be there for us for the taking. And people want these sort of, quick answers. They want to know why is something the way it is right now. But in reality, it's a lot of the times it's better that we wait to find out that answer down the road. Because we're not ready for it at that point in time. We might get overwhelmed by it. We might not know how to react to it. So I'm with you.
It's like with obstacles in life, right? Like whenever something hits you, you don't understand why. You're like, well, I'm doing, this, and this. I should be getting these type of results. But like, no, these obstacles come into your life. It's like a video game. You have to pass this level, right? If you look at it this way and you're like, okay, I've done this and it didn't work. That means that I need to find a different approach instead of quitting. never look to quit, because quitting is like, once you start quitting, then it's so easy to give up on your confidence. Once you lose your confidence, then man, it's very hard to get it back, you know, because, but you shouldn't lose your confidence based on results, because results, they're so volatile. They really are. Like the best, like the smartest people that I follow in the crypto community, right? All of them are smarter than me, like way better traders and everything. They take losses all the time still. Losses are part of anybody's game. And if you don't accept that, and if you just only want to win, then, you know, you're going to kind of be stuck on that level, you know, but you want to always progress. At least that's what I'm looking at life. I'm trying to get from one level to another. And if I'm not getting hit with obstacles, you know, then it's too easy. Then it becomes boring, you know? So I kind of need those obstacles, even though you don't want them, but that they actually make you way better. You know, and I mean, people want to say, oh, it's cliche to say that, but it's really fucking true. Because when you look back at your story and you see, hey, this happened, but this is how I bounced back. And then you can see, this is why I got to this point, because I did that. I didn't quit on myself. So, yeah.
It is really fucking true. And adversity is inevitable. It's just a matter of how do we respond to it. You know, we all start out with fragile confidence. All of us do, whether we want to admit it or not. Our confidence when we start out is fragile, but it's these sort of obstacles that make us more confident, more strong, make us who we truly are, the best selves that we could be, closest to it. And like you said, we may be confused, we may be overwhelmed, we may be discouraged by them at first, but down the line, we're going to go, I'm actually really glad that, you know, hey, I lost 20 units in a span of however many events, because it taught me to really hone in on my process. I got my ass kicked last year, middle of the year. And it's a blessing, because it made me hone in on a new handicapping process. Had that never happened to me, I would have never made that adjustment, and I wouldn't have finished off the year strong, you know. But at the time, I was going, oh man, why is this happening to me? I'm just like, I'm, you know, this and that, but I needed to learn. It was like a blessing. I was hard on myself. I just went at it, and you just can't get discouraged. It just makes us stronger. That's the way it is.
Yeah, honestly, this is my whole approach changed when I had a terrible loss last year. I lost on Edmund Shabazian against Derek Brunson. I put huge units on it, probably the biggest bet I've ever had. You know, just, you know, thousands of dollars. You know, but after that, I realized, okay, well, what went wrong here? Let's analyze this from take my ego out. Let's analyze this. Was this ever a good bet? And, you know, kind of started the process. I was okay with understanding that, hey, I could be wrong about a lot of things. This is the first step. Be honest with yourself. Like, you can change things, but in order to change things, you have to be honest with yourself. Be like, hey, man, this is what I did, and this is not, you know, the right way to do it, because, hey, obviously the sizing, you know, was wrong. Like, once again, the sizing comes up again. But yeah, so you see the patterns of mistakes that you make, because as a person, the same with fighters, right? When you watch tape, you can see the same weaknesses, right, on whoever you're watching, right? Because you see the patterns. Like, this is one area where they're weakest at. So the same thing can be applied to your own self. So as a gambler, you can see, hey, I'm good at this and I'm not good at that. Instead of saying, and hey, I'm going to just accept that, how about you say, I'm going to look to fix that? And that's the approach. That's the approach. And that changes everything, because to me, like, I'm okay with being uncomfortable. I really am. Like, I've moved countries. I've came from a different country. I moved to America when I was 15, whatever. Like, so I'm okay with change. And I'm okay with saying, hey, I might not know shit. And a lot of people might not be, but, you know, and I understand that too, because your ego protects you, right? It gives you the confidence. It gives you that, you know, whatever you have, the edge, right? But that's okay. You can still be honest with yourself, and you can still understand that you do have those strengths, but just work on those weaknesses. Just, I mean, one at a time. You don't have to just make it complex. Just make it simple. Try to make it simple and work on one thing. And that's it. Like, honestly, start there. And then I think a lot of times when people want to make change in their life, right? Like, if someone is unhealthy, they want to start working out, then they like find, you know, the hardest workout routine, right? And they're like, they get discouraged. No, don't start there. Just start with little steps. And that will make it easier for you to get to that ultimate goal. Like, if you want to make it that, hey, I need to go from 0 to 100, like, well, of course it's going to be hard, but just go from 0 to 1%, then 2, then 3, and then just keep going. Like make a good, healthy routine and go from there.
Yeah, all of us want change, but not all of us are willing to take the steps in order to get there. Set the goals. What are the steps to get there? And like you said, some people set those steps, but they're taking too big of a leap. They're not taking those necessary smaller steps to get to where they want to get to. You know, a lot of people know what they don't want in life,
Right.
but you know, not everybody knows what they do want. And getting super specific, super clear on what we do want, you know, takes us there. You know, we by just setting an example, writing it down, you know, saying that I want this to happen by this date and this is what needs to happen, you're already sending a message to yourself that, you know, this is more likely to happen. You know, there is change that's going to happen along the way. And change might sound scary to some, but change is what is necessary for you to achieve your dreams, you know, because we, like you said, the ego is trying to protect you. It's not trying to get you out of your comfort zone. But I kick my ass every day. I say to myself every day, I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone often. I affirm it to myself every day, 10 times a day, because I just want to get uncomfortable. You know, I wake up, my back is hurting. Well, time to get my ass out of bed right away. Pronto, go to the gym, you know, right away. Like these are the things that not everybody wants to do, but the things that myself, yourself, others have done that are crucial for us to take the next steps in lives. Because if it was so easy, everybody would be able to do it. And that's another cliche, but it's so true, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're stuck in the routine, it's hard to get out of it, right? Because you do the same things over and over. But then I think the first step is, instead of thinking how are you going to do something, just figure out why. Why do you want to do something? Like if you have a reason, if that's your passion or you're doing it for your fam or whatever it is, you know, then once you figure out the why and what, then the how can come later. Everybody wants to just like figure out the how every step of the way. Like that's not how it works. Like I have a plan where I want to go, but like, man, I wake up every day scared of my dreams. I am scared because this is how big I dream, you know, I dream big and I'm scared, but like at the same time, it gives me motivation to go and do something. You know what I mean? But I'm not worried about like, okay, I need to have a perfect plan from A to Z. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, you know, if I have what I want and I know what I want and why I'm doing this, and every day I'm just taking one day at a time, literally, like one day at a time. If you're present, that's another thing that in nowadays in 2021 and whatever, I think a lot of people are not really present, you know, in the moment. And that's why exercise is so important. When you're working out, like when I'm doing like martial arts, I can't not be in the moment. Like I'm going to get my ass kicked if I'm not in the moment. If I'm thinking about paying bills or whatever, I'm going to get jabbed in the face, whatever, you know? So you have to be in the moment. That's why you feel actually so good afterwards, because you're not thinking about that shit that worries you, like whatever relationship or the bills that you have to pay. You actually are flowing in that moment. And if you can create those type of moments throughout the day, whether it's working out or working on your project, if you're actually present, that's a beauty, man, right there. Honestly.
Yeah, dude, and you get it when you're doing martial arts. I do it when I swim in the morning. I get in that flow state, you know, when I'm doing that or when I'm writing content pieces like that. That is like what makes the day go by so fast, and it's so fun. And it makes us just feel like we're more efficient. We're just so much more productive when we're that in the moment flow state. I could conquer anything. And yeah, like you said, the dreams could be scary along the way, but that's a good thing. We're bold enough to take them on. And we're going to get there, you know, with some time. And like you did say, it's not our job to determine the how. You know, we just need to think of the why. Why are we doing this? Not just, you know, also have the, you know, what we want to achieve, but you know, learn along the way, create the trial and error.
Like, everybody wants answers right away, and that's just not how it is. Like we just have to be okay with uncomfortable. Think about the way you know, humans developed, you know, like 2,000 years ago. You didn't even know what you're gonna eat for dinner. You didn't even know. Like you had to go and fucking get it, right? So you were so uncomfortable living in those times, and now we have, you know, we have so much comfort, right? There's still struggles. I'm not saying people are not struggling. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that people take it for granted, the things that they have. That's what I'm saying. And then, you know, if you get too comfortable and you don't ever get out of that zone, then you're not really growing, you know, and then you're kind of staling, you know. And to me, as a 28-year-old, I mean, I have to keep growing. That's another thing that, like, I couldn't work office jobs anymore. I just could not. It was killing me. I was like, I'm not being creative. I'm not actually developing any skill here. All I'm doing is collecting salary, and that's it. That really is it. Like ever since I graduated from college, I was, what was it, 22 years old, and now I'm 28. The most amount of growth I did was on my own, not through jobs, not at all. It was on my own time, like learning finance, learning how to invest, learning how to save money, that kind of stuff. They don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you that at work either. But, when you pursue your own thing and you actually, putting your mind to it and you actually going step by step, like that's a beautiful thing. But, that's my, that's how I look at it. I also think that people have different paths. I'm not telling everybody to drop out of college or, quit your job. But like, if you're actually happy doing what you're doing, do that. But if you're not, then, maybe look for a different path that makes you passionate about it. So.
Yeah. What works for me and you won't, or what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa, or for anybody else. That's what you said. People want answers now, but we, we're not always there to give them. Even if we have this encyclopedia of knowledge, the answers that we could provide to the best of our abilities may not be the best thing for them. It's often best for us to learn on our own, learn from our own mistakes, grow from them. And yeah, like we're going to, trip up along the way, but at the end of the day, we're doing it regret-free because we're doing our best. Mm-hmm. Like you took a leap of faith, as did I. January of last year, I just lost my motivation at my corporate job. And so I wanted to take a leap into the unknown. And this is where I am. And I'm super, super happy to do it because we're just more motivated now. We're more fired up. We see more longevity with it. We're just in a completely different state of mind, more energetic. And it's so important, man. And yeah, everybody has their own path and everybody has their own lessons to learn along the way. Of course, there's going to be guidance, some advice here and there, but there's a lot of lessons that we're supposed to learn on our own.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is like a lot of people want to tell you that you can't do something, right? Whether it's your own family is going to tell you that. It's not even like people online, like that doesn't even matter. Those people, whatever. But like your own family, like your own dad or whoever, they can be, oh, it's too hard or whatever. But that should not like shake your confidence. I know it's easy to say that, but like think about it this way. The reason why people say that is because they couldn't do that themselves. That's really it. You never hear the people that actually did something. You're never going to hear Elon Musk telling you, hey, you can't do this. You know what I mean? You're never going to hear like Steve Jobs. Well, he's not longer here. But like, those kind of guys, they're not going to go and tell you, hey, you can't accomplish something. Because that's what they dealt with. They dealt with all that doubt on their way up. They know how it goes. But if you stick to it, if you have a good plan, and then you know why you're doing that, you can get it done. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, take a bet on yourself, like really invest in yourself. A lot of people, when they tell me, hey, man, like this is not a good time, or I don't have money to invest in here, I'm like, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. That's another thing. Go to 1%. Just like learn a little bit. Just put your feet in the water. See how it feels. If you don't like it, get out. That's it. Like, I mean, that you can always get out. You know what I mean? But if you don't try, then you don't never know how it's going to feel,
Yeah. Got to be risk takers. That's the best way to live life. Just take risks, good risks, calculated risks that we feel are beneficial for the long term. And they don't always work out, but that's just the way it is. And we're going to have, as you work your way up life, like you said, we're going to have naysayers. I had people, when I told them when I did it, they kind of thought it was like a joke. Like, how could he do this? He's an idiot, whatever. It's just like, how would they know? They only know that they're only saying that because, like you said, they're not thinking big. They're thinking small. They're not your potential. Your potential. We know our potential. We know some of our potential. We know we could go high, but maybe truly we could go even higher. Right. So it's always this sort of balance of like, ignore what the external world is telling you, what is possible, not possible. Anything is possible. Right. You got to have that plan of action, like we said. So yeah, ignore the naysayers, just, stick to it. There's going to be like before adversity along the way, but it's just stay on course and don't let anything discourage you.
And when we say that, I want people to get this too, that we're not saying that we're ignoring all the risks when we say take faith, take belief in yourself. When I pursue this path, I understand all the risks every single day. Like I said, I wake up, I'm scared. Why am I scared? Because I know how difficult the road is. So I already have that understanding. And every day, like I analyze every single day, like I have a very analytical mind, probably from playing chess since I was 3 years old. But like this is the way I break down my life, like every single day. So I already have these thoughts. So when I share my visions or dreams with you, and the first opinion that you give me is fear and doubt, I don't really want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Because I already have that in my mind. Like the fear and doubt is always there. Just support me just a little bit. You know what I mean? If you support me, if that's your energy right away, you just support me. But then you bring up like, hey, what about this? Then I'm okay with that. But if you just respond with, just negativity, then like, what's good about that? Why not actually believe that you can fucking do this? You know what I mean? Like we only get this chance, right? We only certain of this moment, right? We're not certain of tomorrow. We're not certain of 5 minutes from now, right? So why live in fear and doubt? You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't control your overall mindset. You know what I mean? That it shouldn't. I mean,
It shouldn't. Yeah, I agree. And that's why and I used to not be good at this, but I'm more so now. I'm more wise to the fact that, the external, how what's happening externally should not affect us internally. There is a way for us to adjust ourselves in such a way internally to where this external stuff doesn't affect it as much as say we would if we had fragile confidence. It's going to be adversity. It's going to be stuff for us to overcome, but we're putting ourselves in a position to take it on. So we were talking off air beforehand, just working on yourself. The best investment you can make is in yourself. You put out a tweet like that, read self-help books, exercise, do meditation. This is the sort of stuff that people don't want to do or they're not familiar with it, but this is the type of stuff that helps you grow. This is long-term growth.
Yeah.
This is stuff that you're going to thank yourself 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Like, hey, I'm so glad that I started this today, because it's never too late.
Yeah. But, and another thing that I would add to that is that people, I know it's, especially with social media, you always kind of, even subconsciously, even if without like thinking, you look for sort of approval, right? You like when you tweet something and you get a like, right? Whatever. We all do. That's what social media is. So if you tweet something, in terms of like, just your path or whatever, and you get no engagement, that's fucking fine. At the end of the day, only a certain amount of people actually reach their goals. And I believe the majority of people never even try. So when you do that in mathematics, of course, you're not going to get much engagement when you're talking about achieving something that most people are not even trying. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. So once you actually step back and you're like, well, I don't need approval of others, and because I know what I'm doing is good for me, then, then you're actually, much better off too, and that's one thing, like I'm trying to cut off the social media on the daily basis. I'm trying to just keep it low to like, maybe an hour a day. I know it's hard because I also follow a bunch of very smart people on Twitter on cryptocurrency that post charts and ideas. So it's kind of hard to like get away from Twitter, but I don't know, minimizing your time on, apps that give you that instant, like is kind of a good thing because that's dopamine in your brain. Every time you get that like, it's dopamine. It's dopamine release. So you get addicted to it. That's what it is. So, and people don't realize that. Like I do, and that's why I'm trying to like take a little step back and just focus, more on myself.
100%. Yeah, people feel like they have to get that approval, and you don't, like, but people just, not everybody realizes that you don't need the approval. When I'm making my decisions at whatever it is, betting or what have you, I appreciate people wanting my insight, reaching out for my opinion, and I respect that they want to do that. But at the end of the day, I feel like we're all very, very capable of making our own decisions, being okay with them without getting the approval. We're having more confidence in ourselves with those decisions, and we're thinking ourselves down the line. We could trust our process. We could just trust our decision making. You just develop so much more self-confidence in yourself. And that's the thing that you need if you want to really thrive in life.
Right. So with that, what you're saying, I just kind of had a question. So like, what's your vision, I guess, for your own business? Are you gonna be a tout down the line, or is that what you're considering, or how are you gonna approach that, I guess?
So I actually was a tout for about a year in 2020, and I realized that it wasn't for me. It just wasn't something I want to do. I feel like I'm better served, giving my bets and my breakdowns for free on Twitter. So right now I want to be in the daily fantasy industry, in the betting industry, being a contributor, which I kind of already do, to MMA, OB, Fantasy Pros, as well as RotoWire. So my goal right now is to basically stay where I am, but get in accelerated roles that'll really take me to the next level. So stay within this sort of circle that I'm in, but make sure that there's, I'm putting myself where I'm in like a longevity, where there's like a path to where I could really progress and get to the next level for however long it is. But
did those companies reach out to you, or how did that happen, I guess?
It's funny you ask, man, dude. I when I took this leap of faith after leaving my role, I reached out to so many different companies in the industry, so many rejections, man. Must have been hundreds. But thankfully, MMA OB was the first one to connect with me. Shout out to Nick Kalikas. I sent him a DM on Instagram, just not thinking anything of it. I just said like, hey, just looking for an opportunity to contribute or something like that. And then he reached out back to me and he's like, yeah, let's get on a call and we'll talk. And before you know it, I'm contributing to MMA OB. I'm a paid handicapper. And to this day, even though I'm not a paid handicapper, I'm still writing content for them, doing podcasts with them. And even Fantasy Pros and RotoWire, I got the roles there eventually, but there was many failures, many rejections along the way, man. So for me, it just been kept trying, honing my craft as a writer, because I used to be terrible at writing, man. Writing used to be my worst subject. But these rejections really, it didn't discourage me. It made me just realize I need to improve my writing if I want to, if I want to do this. And so that's what I did. And eventually I got there, man. So
yeah, that's beautiful to hear, man, because just the way that you were able to overcome the rejections, and just keep going and keep not saying that, hey, fuck you guys, I'm gonna, just do my own thing, but you kept at it, and then they came to you pretty much, that's beautiful, that's beautiful, because like a lot of people wouldn't do that, I mean, even like myself included, like if someone doesn't feel me, I don't go there twice, I'm just kind of like, whatever, if you don't like it, I'm just going to do my own way, so just to have that, persistence, that's a beautiful thing, because that's a lot of people lack that, that's great to see. So, I mean, yeah, that's an awesome path that you have for yourself there, like, I'm really glad that you're not, doing an office job that you hate, or, you're doing something that wasting your talent away, because like, guys, we have so many people in this industry, or just the people, that I interact with, that could do a similar thing where they can take the faith in themselves and go at it with something, you know what I mean? And a lot of times we just don't, and if we can encourage, I think that would be awesome. Like, if we can encourage one person from this conversation to just, go at their dreams, that would be a beautiful thing, honestly.
It really would, yeah. Because me and you have both been in that position where, we just didn't think like where we are right now was possible, to put it bluntly. But it took the journey to really realize that, because not everybody loves the journey, man. People just want to score. They're just focused on scoring. They're just focused on cashing their bets. They're not in love with the process of whatever it is they want to get there. But that loving the process, in addition to loving to score, you can still love to score. There's nothing wrong with it, but just loving the process in addition to that really reassures you yourselves, like, this is what I want to do. I love every single moment of this particular thing that I want to do from start to finish. Not just I want the profits at the end, because that's just saying like, this is just another source of income. I mean, you could say that for anything, but we bet on ourselves. We wanted to leave our corporate jobs because we wanted to do what we love for a living, because that puts us in the best chance possible to succeed long-term and help other people out. Like you said, just inspire even one person would be ideal. So yeah, man, 100% right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a long road, and I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, and every day, like I said, when I wake up, I don't think like, hey, I've accomplished, a certain amount. Like, yeah, I like to look back and reflect on the wins, because if you don't, then you're never satisfied, and then you're never gonna be like happy with anything in terms of your career. So you do have to take a moment and like, hey, I've done this and this and this. That's cool. But then at the same time, obviously, like, keep chasing your best self, like, because you can always improve, like, I never feel like I'm maxed out. Even my biggest strengths, I feel like I can always get better at those, and I think that's important, and I think that comes, like I said, like with me, with playing chess, and like, I think jujitsu, actually doing jujitsu, that's the closest thing to chess that I can ever compare anything to. And just learning and being understanding, like, man, like, the better you get at something, the more you know that you don't know, actually. because there's so much information, man, like in those fields that you're like, man, like this is amazing. Because like my biggest issue is if I get bored of something, like that's when I lose interest, and then then it's tough. But with what I've chosen to kind of go after, I think that I have a long way, man, and we'll see what happens, but I'm very excited, man.
Yeah, likewise. What is that quote that Neil Patrick Harris says? A lot of us are smart enough to know what we're right, but not enough to know about that we're wrong. It's so true, man. And yeah, it's a humble process, and it keeps us going. It keeps us active. And if the time comes to where we have learned everything, then it's on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's another.
There's not. It's just appreciate whatever journey you're on. When you're on it. Because you never know. If you're gonna not want to be on it, like in year. If you get bored from it, just enjoy it. Yeah, the process is an important thing. Like if every day you kind of have to get up and like be excited about what you're doing. And I know that some days you wake up and you don't feel great about something, but at the end of the day, if you're working on your passion, I think you're going to be in a good place. So
100%. And that is a great quote to end our broadcast.
Yeah, let's zoom in. Like, yeah, it was a long one.
No. I'm glad that you said that though. But yeah, 100%. It keeps us going. Do what you love what you do, love the process. Don't just love scoring. And yeah, before we wrap things up, I would just like to thank the audience for tuning in for us. Hopefully we brought you guys a lot of good content, not just MMA. Andrew and I talked beforehand. We didn't want to just get on here and just get predictions. We want to give you guys content that is good for the long term, stuff that you could look back on. And it could be helpful for you then, a year from now, 2 years from now, hopefully, not rather than just getting on here giving predictions. We like to do that, but we want to give you guys something else in addition to where you could look back and have some long-term growth. So Andrew, I want to thank you so much for your time here. It was a pleasure, brother. You're always on. You're always welcome on whenever you ask. And thanks so much, and best of luck this weekend, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me, and it was an amazing time. Yeah, I've been down to podcasting a lot, so that was great. Yeah, and I wish you're the best this weekend, and on your journey, and we connect again, of course, anytime.
Likewise. Thank you, brother.
All right, bro.